formerly the League of Nations, founded under the leadership of Woodrow Wilson, who was the then president of the United States, was the League of Nations, founded on the principles of a collective security agenda, therein transformed to become the United Nations by the UN Charter enactment. In its 78th sitting, we had, of course, Uganda, represented by Her Excellency the Vice President, retired Major Jessica Lupo, that made a statement that, depending on where you're seated, you have the right to evaluate whether it spoke to the hearts of Ugandans or it did not. So we shall evaluate that statement, but also the events around our delegation. We had, a seemingly parallel delegation, and, the implication on the taxpayer. Are we, being frugal about our very small, resources? That is phase one. Phase two shall talk about the Forum for Democratic Change. That is or has been Uganda's leading opposition party for at least the past 20 years before it was dislodged by the new kid on the block, the National Unity Platform. The crisis in there continues to deepen, and, we have the Naja Nkumbi versus the Katonga side. We have seen legal battles ensuing. But, do they need a legal or political solution is the question that I'll ask today on the Youth Roundtable. Viewers, welcome to this episode, and I introduce to you our guests, and in no particular order. From the National Unity Platform and the Speaker of Kawempe Division, also a lawyer, is Harris Akampurira. Harris, we're very happy to have you.
Thank you, my brother Kidega. Good morning to our viewers, and good morning to fellow panelists.
Good morning. We are very happy to have you. Harris, from the National Youth Council Executive, is its Secretary for Legal Affairs, Mercy Kanyesigye, is the name, and also a lawyer. Mercy, we are very happy to have you this afternoon.
Thank you, Comrade Kidega. To our viewers, good morning, and also my fellow panelists, good morning to you all. And I'm really glad to join you this morning. Thank you.
We are very happy to have you, Mercy. All right, next to Mercy is a gentleman who aspires to lead the Forum for Democratic Change Youth League. The name is Manful Abeneitwe. Yeah. Manful, we are happy to have you.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be part of it today. A good morning to all the viewers, and a good morning to my fellow panelists.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
A youth entrepreneur, a youth political activist, and former guild president of the Chambogo University Students Guild is Ochieng Ochieng. For those of you who followed that election, you must have seen the euphoria and vibrancy of the young man then. So today, I don't know if he still has that energy that we saw back then, but hopefully you do. Ochieng, we're happy to have you.
Oh, thank you very much, Comrade Kidega. Yeah. Really beautiful being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's just dive straight to the chase, gentlemen and lady. And Harris, let me give you the microphone.
Yeah.
The United Nations convenes its 78th sitting, the General Assembly, and our statement. What do you make of it as a country?
First of all, let's revisit the cardinal duties of the United Nations. I mean, the rationale, why it was founded. And it was founded on the heels of the inter-world wars, specifically Second World War, that had claimed millions of people, that saw, abuse of human rights, death of people in cold blood. Really, the world was in a maze, and the dignity of the human being was at stake. So leaders of nations came together and made a solemn declaration that never, ever shall the face of the earth ever witness the horror, the terror of men against fellow men, of human beings against human beings. So at the heart of the United Nations Charter is a pursuit of peace, of world peace and security, providing an environment within which states can thrive, within which human beings can pursue their individual goals of happiness and self-determination. Now, having said that, then the United Nations becomes a community of nations, coming together to continuously chart the way forward on that path of the world peace, of world security. So when these nations come together, they have come to have a global conversation. Yeah, not an individualistic conversation. And so I looked at the statement by Uganda. You know, we had a delegate of 700 people. And I was like, wow, 700 delegates at the UN.
71, Dugu.
71.
Seven.
Oh, 71. Not,
Yes, 71.
no, 71 is already too big. I think it was so big
Yes.
that, I mean, where other nations are being frugal, they are looking at the best talent, they are looking at the best experts, the best diplomats to go to the UN and negotiate, were being represented by 71 people, and among them were spouses, among them were housemaids, among them there were drivers, there were AD, there were security guards. And the first thing they did was to go to New York Times Square, take selfies, pictures, and update their clan meetings and family WhatsApp groups. So when eventually time for making the national statement came, the statement was empty. The only thing I heard from the vice president was that we have defeated Ebola in a record time of 4 months. And that was a shame. That was a shame. Why? Because when you look at what Kenya did, it was inspirational. It was an ambitious statement. You could see a leader speaking to other leaders and echoing the vision for the future, echoing the global challenges that are facing us as a humanity. Because when you come to the UN, you forget your smallness. You have come to chart the agenda, the course, the direction for the entire humanity. So you must show your contribution. You know, UN is premised on the principle of sovereignty and equality of states.
One state, one vote.
Yeah, one state, one vote. So when you come, colleagues, peers expect you to up your game, to come to table. There must be a meeting of minds. You're submitting at that level. Yes? You're expected to meet the expectation, the standard, the competencies of delegates from USA, from Canada, from all these European countries, all around the world. Did we meet the expectation? No. Did the president of Kenya do that? Very well.
What do you think was missing in that statement? What should have been said, or what was not said?
No. Like I've already said, I think there was nothing in the statement.
Because I think the vice president spoke about pertinent issues, like our
Like what?
like our security dilemma, and
Which
how
security.
in the region
The only thing she talked about was
and our role in stabilizing.
Well, in my
region.
assessment,
I think
and
that
I listened to the
was
statement.
Strategic.
I listened to her statement a record 4 times, and I was trying to make sense of it. And I went to the statement made by countries like South Africa. I think Ramaphosa made a huge contribution in assessing the history of the UN and where, you know, the position, for example, the discriminatory position of Africa on the UN. I mean,
which Honorable Alupo mentioned as well, when she said the issue of the United Nations Security Council. There is not. I mean, the same issues were mentioned, that Africa needs to have a permanent seat.
Well, Kidega, as I submitted earlier, I was not impressed by the speech of the vice president. And as a Ugandan, sitting there looking on how my delegate is going to perform, I couldn't give her even a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
The performance was so poor, and we'll delve deeper into that later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Your own observation and your own comments about our address.
I think what I can say is if there are a group of people who have to clap, we have to clap for the vice president for reading someone's written speech. I can clearly read President Museveni's mind in her document. I mean, the issue of sovereignty, the issue of the respect of human rights, which they say it's highly, deeply rooted into the culture, I could also pick something on the issues of the refugees. I could also see them boasting of how they have empowered the women. So to me, to rate the speech, I could not rate it in a mind of the brain, the intellectualism. I could rate it as a group of people who are looking at a platform of masquerading, showing that these are things we have done, and here we are. You seem not to be knowing what Uganda is capable of. I think today, young generations like us must have a thought process that is totally different from that. Today, the world, Africa needs to have a firm grip in the competition for the global cake. We must show how competent we are, even in the brain. We must see the quality of the people who stand to represent us there. We must see how competent are they in terms of argument with other groups. Because in such a global platform, there are global funders, investors, development partners who are listening, to which groups have bigger visions that would need better funding. So literally coming over to talk about how you have been able to build some few granaries in your areas, that shouldn't be the thing of the global space. We should be having, I think that speech needed to have been revised. That's the real truth. Because this felt like our own president addressing the few investors in Uganda, the way he always does, calls some few Chinese, teases them, and he tells them about our culture, scares them about the stability, and shows it's the big man syndrome that he always shows. But in the global space, we needed, Uganda deserved better. I mean, Uganda has produced elite group of people. Uganda has produced quite competent groups that even the UN appreciates some of the people we have sent there. So,
Okay, Ochieng Ochieng.
Please.
I want to put you on that podium.
Yes.
In New York.
Yes.
What would you say?
In my own opinion, I looked at if we could look at the speech or the vice president coming in to talk in quite very strong about the problems of Africa and how to address the problems of Africa.
Which are, for example?
Some of these things like the unfair economical policies that the international funders are giving Africa. You find that sometimes we go for borrowings, but the ratings at which African countries are given are sometimes different from the European countries. I expected to see, Uganda is a champion of Pan-Africanism since 1960s. Yeah, so we needed to see such kind of a thing, a voice, not something of how women are giving birth in some few health care facilities that are not even of good qualities being taken up there. We also expected to see the exploitation of Africa. Exploitation. Today as we speak, Congo is not in peace. Not because of Africans, but the men seated in that place are the architects of the Congo crisis. I expected to see that because this person is representing the father of Pan-Africanism. President Museveni boasts so big, speaks so big about Pan-Africanism. I expected to see such a big agenda. I didn't see us really coming to show off of how we are preventing wetlands from being destroyed. I feel really it was minute, in my own opinion.
Wow. I'm sure the viewer there is saying, what a show that we are about to have this afternoon. Mercy, Kanyesigye, what do you make of the statement?
Okay, thank you, comrade, and with due respect to my fellow discussants, I think we just need to know what was the theme. I think it was actually about to access how countries have performed in attaining or achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and how the country is committed, to make it, happen. So I think that's what we should really look at before we go far. And I was very interested. What really stood out for me is how the vice president spoke about our, sovereignty, our independence, to do our political affairs as a country, our social, economic laws, our political laws without any interference. I love that, and really it made me believe in this leadership, the Uganda. So I was really interested, and it's really absurd to find young men like these ones. They didn't see anything. It's really absurd, and I feel like they are like sadists. They don't really love to see good things. They are just criticizing everything. How do you say that whatever she said, there's nothing, totally nothing?
Maybe they have chosen not to see. They're just chosen not to see.
That's why I'm saying maybe they are just sadists. So I don't really believe in that. And I've also...
But what did she say?
Of course, I am telling you. I've already told you our sovereignty. And also she talked about, you were talking about the African, the global thing. What did she say? I heard in her speech, she talked about how, Africans, developing countries to be part of the financial,
Financial inclusion.
To have the Africans represented. You get, because we always face challenges as African countries or developing countries, and we don't have anyone to represent us. So it was global. It was not only about Uganda. And also she talked about the, equality, gender equality. I was really impressed, and I really love that about what we are, the 30-something percent, women in parliaments, in public service. It was really so interesting, and part of our sustainable development goals. I think Uganda, we are doing better. However much we really also need, to do much to add on, but that was a good move, you get. And also she talked about on issue of climate action, the challenges we are facing. You understand that
issues around
climate, we are really facing challenges, not because we want, sometimes it is because of the financial, constraints. And she really advocated, to have to be supported as African countries. It really stood out for me.
Actually, she spoke about the Paris Agreement that enjoins member states to, I think, give is it the 1 billion?
100 billion to developing countries. Yeah, it was really so interesting. And I think that's what I can say for now. But I can really, you people,
let's... Hold on. Mercy, you are fully protected.
Okay, I am protected. Thank you.
Yes, just because you mentioned something on the rights of women, and I want to just delve a bit deeper into that. Do you think that the rights of women and women empowerment in Uganda has reached a level where we would like it to be?
Of course, not really where I want it to be or where I would like, but it's a process. We shall reach where we are, and I love the percentage where we are. I'm very happy when I see women in leadership. It gives me hope. It gives me energy. It gives me, like, I go to school like any other boy child. And if I see that I can really do something for my country, it was very interesting. For the sake of the vice president, there was minister for there was prime minister,
Aren't we the only country that had a female person speaking for us? I think, okay, we are among the very few countries that had a female delegate making our statement.
Yeah, that
rest had men. I think it was a strong statement.
We are really walking the talk of 2030 agenda. Uganda, we are doing better. Of course, there are also other challenges, because women are really discriminated, more so in politics. When, there are some maybe like crises, women are always, blackmailed and intimidated. A woman is not to be like this in public. And that one, frustrates them from participating in politics. For example, in FDC, you see what is really happening. It's between the men. Do you know why? Women cannot come out because the public will abuse them. And they feel so small, and at the end of the day they will not participate. So we want where everyone is free to participate in every platform freely.
Thank you. I will give you two gentlemen just a minute before I come to Manful. Just 1 minute from you, Harris, and strictly 1 minute, then Ochieng, then I will come to Manful. I saw your hand was, I think you can say something.
Yeah, I think she has pretty much summarized the speech of the president, of the vice president, and it vindicates the point I was making earlier. that in terms of strategic direction, in terms of global conversation, in terms of international diplomacy, there was nothing. Because let's give an example of state sovereignty, which is one of the core principles of the United Nations. So who is after the sovereignty of Uganda? Or which state is not sovereign anyway? For us to make it one of the core points of the speech. No.
But we were assessing.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it couldn't have occupied so much space.
And we know what.
Which is an irrelevant concept. It's already
It's
a binding.
irrelevant.
It's already a binding principle.
No, but you
It's
are,
already a
you are
binding.
aware
On
of
paper.
the
How
few
about in
months
practice?
what has
It's
been
already.
happening after Uganda
Today I'm
passing
concluding.
the
It's already a
anti-sexuality
binding principle,
law.
and no one really wants the sovereignty of Uganda. What I think,
Yeah.
because this is what you asked me earlier, what should have said is the strategic position of Africa and Uganda in the global affairs. And that should have permeated the entire speech of the president. And for you to know that we performed so abysmally, you need to look at the speech by the president of Kenya, you need to look at the speech by the representative of the Burkina Faso, because the president of Burkina Faso was represented by the minister. And he spoke to power at the United Nations. He spoke to the injustices that continue to, subsume the United Nations, the mistreatment of Africa, the unfair world economic system, the unfair.
the Vice President talked about it was in her speech.
Honorable Jessica Alupo, Her Excellency, spoke about. But Manful, I want to bring you in. Ochieng, I will get back to you. Manful, you've heard the minds of these three people. I want to hear your own.
Thank you so much, and thank you, comrade panelists. It is quite unfortunate what we saw at the 78th UN Assembly, where our own, the Vice President, was actually not talking to people, but trying to read something that was given to her. In comparison, I saw other heads of states, including His Excellency Ramaphosa, including the Zalas of Malawi, including His Excellency Paul Kagame and His Excellency William Ruto. At least they were trying to talk to the people, because you expect such an assembly to be full of intellectualism. But it was unfortunate to see our own, the Vice President, reading what she was given.
So
She was not talking to me.
I know, right?
Is the issue reading or the context of
No,
what is
yes,
being
I'll
read?
I'll come to that. But it was the presentation, actually, to me. My opinion, the presentation was, if I'm to rate it, it is 1 out of 10. And in what she spoke about, most of the things that I saw were part of the aims and objectives on why the UN Charter was started in 1945. I talked about the multilateralism and having dialogues to have regions where there are conflicts and wars settled. Though all those are aims of the
No,
UN.
she talked about it. You can't watch the speech. She talked about it. People who watched it, am I lying? She talked about it.
What did she give weight? Nothing.
What do you mean?
I mean, towards a passing comment about everything and pretty much about nothing.
Not really. She was
Okay.
calling, other states to work together to achieve the 2030 goal.
Yes. Manful, can you borrow your time to this guy?
Yeah, so I'll add on something really quick. You see, Uganda, we have a very powerful position in the history of Africa. The role we played in the frontline states. There are people who are today leading South African countries who were once in Uganda here. Emerson Mnangagwa, the president of Zimbabwe, once confessed it. In the 1960s, he was here. Uganda today must be part of the African countries leading a voice of a united Africa. if there are countries that have failed to achieve the sustainable development goals, then majority are in Africa. Why? Africa has a lot of instabilities. Most of them that are foreign influenced. Yes, the finances might come in, but the conditions under which we are subjected in. Can Congo, for example, without relative peace, can they achieve the goal easily? Today, the women who are supposed to be vying for the positions have to run with jerrycans to go to another country. So if Africa, if Uganda can't join the continental, uniform, powerful voices, then at the end of the day, there's no way you would expect a proud Ugandan like me to appreciate such a speech. The speech was more of a Ugandan system. It's like we addressing a group of people.
But when she spoke about the African Continental Free Trade Area
You
and
see,
the need for member states to actually have non-tariff barriers, wasn't that a continental agenda? To be honest and fair to her.
I saw that, but I expected.
But that was not a platform for that.
I expected.
But
to be fair.
Ndugu,
you are
I
conflicted
expected.
with what you're saying.
I expected such a platform. Africa today is going through a lot of crises.
In 1 minute.
Africa is going through a lot of crises. Basing on starting from financial.
Speaking to the
I just want to say something.
issue of Africa.
I feel she seemed to be trying to hit a point, but not hitting it well. That's all. Maybe if she wanted to hit it, she was not hitting it well.
Thank you. Manful. Sorry, but I have to give you sufficient time to make your points.
I think
no.
I think
Harris,
my brother
no.
has been intimidated
Harris.
by the moderator.
No.
You have Odega. My brother Kidega, you have intimidated saying that to a point of he had started very well, but you have now twisted him to a point of saying, okay, she had a point, but she didn't make it work.
You see,
No.
At the end of the day,
No.
I don't want to really. I don't want the team that really values her point to really feel like our mind is absolutely out of context. Yes, she spoke. But the magnitude, what we expected, is not what we received.
Exactly.
I think that is how I can summarize.
Okay,
very
Manful.
Yes.
Manful, please, you have the time.
Thank you so much. We can all agree that where there is no peace and where there is insecurity, development cannot happen. And that is where I hoped the vice president or the president would have hinted more on the issue of insecurity in our continent, including our neighbors, our neighboring countries. That is DRC, the Sudan. But then it turned into a showcasing on what the NRM government has achieved, as they say, what they have achieved in the country, of which the achievements she talked about are not to the average percentage at this time. My comrade sister here talked about the issue of women empowerment, and she brought in an example of FDC. I never wanted to talk about FDC before we go to that. Where she said that what is happening in the FDC is between men, which is not true, because the FDC as the leadership has involved in the women. There is equality actually. The women have been empowered and they are part of the leadership. So it is between the women and the men, not only the men. So conclusively, well, a few points that the Vice President hinted about, the refugees. I credit Uganda on that because it has done quite well on receiving the refugees. However, we need to look at the root cause of refugees coming from wherever they come from and getting here in our country. So I'll not say, as my comrade said, what we expected to see is not what we saw. We expected a fish possibly on a plate, and we received mokene. So,
Okay.
that is it.
Thank you. Harris, let me get to you. The issue of global peace and security is, like we all agree here, it is fundamental. Scholars of global peace like Kenneth Waltz have argued that if the world cannot deal with transnational terrorism, then the issue of global peace is far from being achieved. That you have, for example, Boko Haram in Nigeria, but their acts of violence are cross-cutting across the entire globe. You have Al-Qaeda in where? Are they in Iraq?
In Iraq, yeah.
But the acts, no, so that's Afghanistan. But the acts of violence cut across. You have the ADF here in Congo, but they perpetrate violence in Kigali, in Kampala. So how can the United Nations offer a solution on the issue of transnational terrorism?
A very important question, but first let us understand what it is at the root of security and what it is at the root of international insecurity. All these conflicts you see around, they are either conflicts of values. Maybe one group believes that they are fundamentalist in the belief of their religion, and the other group is opposed to their values, and they see that as a threat to their existence, their being. That is number one. But most importantly, and which is usually slipped under the carpet, is the issue of resources. Conflicts, in most cases, 90% of the time, the conflict is about resources. Because the human struggle is a struggle of resource allocation. It's a struggle of trying to fulfill individual and collective pursuits for happiness, for fulfillment, for self-determination, for self-actualization. That's what all these conflicts are around. And in most cases, when you read serious security studies, these so-called cross-territorial conflicts are sponsored by states. Which states are interested in keeping other states in captivity. When you go to Al-Shabaab, that's not about Al-Shabaab alone. Where do they get the guns? Where do the guns pass? They have been doing that kind of business for how long? Let's go to Afghanistan. What is the history
of the Taliban?
What's behind that? Isn't it a problem originally created by a state, one big state, which they failed to uproot once their interest was met? So I think that unless as a humanity, in our collective consciousness, we graduate from materialistic conceptualization of our essence, then we shall remain trapped in this mesh of conflict, one after the other. Some of them are perceived, they are not real. But at the core, of course, and this is a serious challenge to the United Nations, at the core, it is geopolitics. It is one state sponsoring another rebel outfit, another terror group somewhere. And what is the agenda of terrorism? Create fear. Because I like the allegory in description of the power of the terrorist by the late Kofi Annan. He said, terrorists it's like a fly on the tail of a cow. It disorganizes a cow because what can a fly do on the tail of the cow? But because the cow is uncomfortable with what is on its tail, then it dances around and creates commotion among the herd of cattle. And that's what terrorism, viewed in itself, terrorism poses the smallest of threat than the threat that is posed by lack of peaceful transfer of power, abuse of human rights, failure to, engender inclusive policies. People now die more of obesity, which is out of greed and lack of self-control, than people are dying from terrorism, or than people died during the World War. People are now dying more of lifestyle diseases than people are dying from war. So yes, it is still a threat, but we also need to limit it to its context.
Yeah. Wow. Good evaluation there. Mercy, on the issue of security still, is that if you look at Uganda and where it is placed, on the eastern side of Uganda is the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is, you would say to a good extent, insecure. Above Uganda is the Republic of South Sudan. You know what is happening there. They have been in conflict for a long period of time. On the other side, we have Somalia. All right? So it looks like Uganda and its neighbors are all in conflict. I don't know, how have we managed as a country to remain stable in a very porous neighborhood of insecurity? Because Somalia, Ethiopia is just above us there, with the Tigray issue. So with all that surrounding, because the VP spoke about our strategic location and how we have managed to stabilize the region. So I don't know, how are we doing it? Is it because of our Pan-African views, like he did mention earlier? I don't know. How is Uganda being able to maintain its security amidst a very porous environment?
Okay, thank you so much, comrade, and I want to thank Mr. Oris for that really detailed, discussion about insecurity. It was really so interesting. Me, I'm not a sadist. I always appreciate if someone does well. I appreciate. So back to me. I think Uganda, what we are doing, it's about prioritizing security. Uganda is really investing so much in security, and they are really so strict. We see what Uganda is doing, supporting, taking the soldiers to Congo, Somalia. I think Uganda, we are really doing great. And as a government, they're really committed, So, I mean, it's about prioritizing and actually love our country. Our leader is patriotic, loves his country, and he makes sure that we are safe and all our property. If someone does not love a country, I mean, what does it take? Maybe he will leave the country and it's up to you. But for him, he insists, and we really want to appreciate the government of Uganda for doing that great job, and not only to Uganda, even to the people in our region. You see, we are hosting the refugees. We are really helping our neighbors. We are sending our troops to our neighbors to curb the ADF. So it really, I see the issue of I see Uganda. Okay, the leadership being patriotic and the spirit of Pan-Africanism in Uganda. And I think Uganda, we are doing great. And if you young people, let's really see how we'll build on this, not live at this level. Let's build on it, and we have better Uganda. In that way, we shall influence other neighbors to be stable.
I'm actually coming to you.
Okay.
Is that still on peace and security? Because if I recall, it was one of the first points that the VP spoke about.
Please.
The issue of peace and security. I want us to evaluate two things here. The role of international bodies and agencies in either stabilizing or destabilizing Africa.
Yes.
You know that the longest serving UN mission is UNESCO, which is in DRC Congo. All right? The second is AMISOM in Somalia, which is the African Union, Somalia, something like that, which has largely been getting support from the UN.
Yes.
You go to Darfur, UN has a heavy presence there.
Sure.
I don't know, is it time for us to pause and say, but wait, these guys come with the sense of we are coming to create peace, but these areas are in conflict.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I had a professor in Uganda that I loved very much. May his soul rest in peace. Professor Kajabago Karusoke. he was a gentleman who put in my brain through his writings that everything about a human being is about economics. A time he wrote a controversial article about the Uganda matters, and he said they were specifically killed because of economics. And many people were quite disappointed, especially the followers of Christianity. But with that said, aside, I would love to say that what is happening in Africa today and the instability of Africa today is more economical. There is someone behind. There's an invisible force behind.
The economic hitman.
Economical hitman. That should be the rightful word for me to place. I would love to say that let's not put down the quality of the debate. Let's look into the issue of geopolitics. Uganda here lies in a strategic position of playing a very big role to this economical hitman. When someone comes to me and says that President Museveni simply loves us, that's why there's military recruitment every now and then. No. If someone comes to me that tells me the total population of guns today in Uganda is actually more than the population of the Ugandans, that is love, that's no. This is a business that a young youth today must read beyond and look beyond. We must have a keen eye. This gentleman running Uganda today has not a role of only serving Uganda, but also serving the international communities. And part of his role is to see that the interest of the economical hitman is reached out. You'll find that in most cases, UN will never settle in an area where there is no economical gain. Congo has issues, and UN has been there, and we are here watching. They had their presence in Central African Republic, and they were there. Diamond. Congo has lots of minerals. It is actually one of the world's richest countries ever. But how do we exploit this?
Let's contextualize that further for our viewers to appreciate the point you're making.
Thank you.
If the resources of Congo are fully exploited,
Yes.
Congo would be richer than the entire Europe.
Yes.
In terms of resources.
Thank you.
You also rightfully mentioned the strategic importance of Somalia.
Yes.
That conflict of Somalia is protracted for the same reason the conflict in Congo is protracted.
Yes.
Resources. Proceed, my brother.
Thank you. So I would love to tell you that countries in Africa today that are, let's say, desert, are never having serious instabilities. If you go to countries that have no minerals at all, why would there be instability? But countries that are rich, trust me, will always have issues. And African strongmen have realized the business that comes with this. And that's why recruitments are done. These most of the, especially the Great Lakes region here, the father is our president here. He has understood the concept of this. And even when he tells the white community how he's dissatisfied of them, politics is still about common interest. We have a common interest here. I have your back on the issues over here. I understand the geopolitical issues of Great Lakes region. You can pass via here. So what really happens here, my brother, I think there will be big speeches that will be made in big platforms, including by the people who are putting these chaos in Africa. They'll speak, they'll make beautiful speeches, but behind their economical thirst will never let African countries that are minerally blessed and resourcefully rich be stable. Should there be anything of economical value in African countries today, there will be war. There will be new tribe who are fighting and they're claiming that they have been for over time marginalized. The marginalized communities, villagers, how do they purchase guns? Lastly, I would love to hint on that. When I was in a political class in my university, we studied the problems of Africa after independence. And one of the problems of Africa after independence was the industrialization in Europe. How was it a problem? These industries manufacture guns, but they don't have market for it. So let's create war and let there be market for the guns. And that has happened here. You'll find a gentleman who is my brother from northern Uganda, like Konyi, affording powerful weapons. That is market. We have to create instability to get market for these guns. Otherwise, these are not daddies to be eaten.
This is a very deep conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Manful, still on the issue of security, is that look at Africa as a continent.
Yes.
And how many military coups we have had over just the past couple of months. Ali Bongo here in Gabon was saying, friends, make noise.
Yes, yes.
Right? He had been overthrown.
Make some noise.
Make some noise. Niger. All right? Gabon. Mention them. Mali. Coup after coup. I don't know. Has Africa failed to reach a democratic consensus that this is how we are going to proceed as a continent? Because we are speaking at the United Nations and we are saying that Africa needs to be stable. But if you have Africans who are, how should I call it? If you have Africans who are overthrowing African governments, then can we continue to blame the West? Or do we say that even the coups are inspired by those who would like to see Africa unstable? So let's speak about the military coups in Africa, but also the role of the African Union, because you know that the African Union, part of its agenda is silencing the guns. But I think the African Union has failed on that. So military coups, the role of the African Union.
Thank you so much, comrade. Well, it is an important discussion when we talk about the insecurity and the cause in Africa that we have experienced or that we have seen, not so far, like the current one in Gabon. Well, the cause, I believe some are happening because of overstay in power. Some are happening, possibly I can't rule out the issue of the Western influence. And then when we look at the UN, because that is the point actually I had wanted to start with, the role of the UN, if one of their objectives or goals is to silence the guns in Africa, then what has went wrong is the UN. Has it failed? Is it incompetent? What has gone wrong if they have one of their objectives as silencing the guns in Africa? Well, I will possibly not rule out the issue of Western influence into the insecurity that we are having as Africa. However, this goes back to the African Union. It needs, I can call it restructuring in its agenda as per silencing the guns is concerned in Africa, because the Western influence will not come here to silence the guns when we are seated. We as Africans, we are the African states. I'll give you examples as the insecurity is concerned. When we look at Libya, when the Colonel Gaddafi was, when his life was put to an end in 2011, Libya has failed to stabilize. Why? As my comrades hinted on at the point of resources, that is the most, because Africa is so rich as resources are concerned, minerals, the forests, So whatever is happening in Africa as the insecurity is concerned, the resources, it's being rich in minerals and other resources, has contributed to the insecurity that we are seeing all over in most African states. Therefore, I put it back to the AU, to the African Union, yes, that it has a big role to play in regards to stabilizing the continent. And possibly it has failed on that to some extent. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, just to wrap it up, we are due for a short commercial break, is that someone actually said that Africa is too rich to be left alone. But also that one piece of fact is if the Igma Dam in Congo was to be up and running.
Yeah, Inga Dam.
Yeah. It has power, it has capacity to power
the entire
sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
So Africa would not be short of hydropower.
And you know what was needed, according to Agenda 63, is that each African state needed to contribute some amount to be collected through a tourism tax.
Yeah.
But you know what African states did? They refused.
You can imagine. So some issues are actually organic, formed within us. Mercy, as we take a short commercial break, I want to end with you. And the question is, really, 78 years down the road, we have convened in this, in New York, and states have come and discussed. But how effective are these resolutions? Anyway, I don't know. Can we say that member states have something tangible that they live with? Because you know that the meetings of the United Nations General Assembly are mere declarations. They are not binding on member states. So I don't know, where does that leave resolutions that are made in such sittings? Are they effective, or it is just a meeting of diplomats?
Well, thank you. I don't think, well, it's a declaration, but still, as a country, we go ahead and, we put those declarations into, laws and policies. That's why we are discussing about the 2030 agenda. It also started from there, and it is helping us to do our laws and, evaluate how we are doing in terms of that. We're talking about health, talking about education, we're talking about security. Still, it comes back here, how we implement, that. And also, we have, for example, on the issue of, let me say, the international days. You get the international days, for example, the Youth Day, Women Day, all these things emanated from, the African Union, objectives and declarations,
United
if I may
Nations,
say, declarations. But we have used it to access and to use it, advocacy platform. We had International Youth Day. We had a lot of things we are demanding, and the president promised, and he has been doing during the international days. We access, we appreciate the role of young people, and the public gets to know. I think it is really important how much there are declarations, but it has helped us to form laws and policies that we implement here in our country.
That is it. We are due for a short commercial break. To the viewers, just stay tuned. There is more of this coming your way. See you shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
In the spirit of Pan-Africanism, we say karibuni. We'll be back from that short commercial break. We'll just continue from where we stopped. And comrades, we need to delve into the Forum for Democratic Change. So let's summarize this. And I want to put each of us at play here. And imagine you're the president or you're the minister of foreign affairs, and you're in New York 2040, and you're speaking on behalf of Uganda at, I don't know, their 120th, whatever it is, sitting. What are you going to speak to the nation? I mean, to the globe. Just make that speech in 1 minute, and we move on to Forum for Democratic Change. Let me begin with you, or as I come towards. Just make first a speech at a global stage.
Oh, thank you very much, comrade. I think asking me directly to make a speech, it's quite a very interesting request. But looking at where I am today, I think this would be the sound of my speech. Ladies and gentlemen of the globe, Africa has fed you all, has fed the different continents, has made you rich, has made you great. Time has come when Africa must be given a chance to take the steps towards development. Because the time at which you gave Africa its sovereignty, you promised that Africa will have a chance of having a journey. But however, your eyes have changed and you've come back in another way. You want more than what you reaped before. And this time round, you don't care whether it means taking a blood of an African person just for under what is in his land, just for under what is in his house. The babies, African babies and the mothers can't sleep. They can't breastfeed anymore. They don't even feel the point of being an African anymore, especially in regions of Congo, in regions of Somalia, and in regions of Libya. Time has come when you should give us an opportunity to identify who we are. You've really made us so busy that we can't even rest to figure out what we need for ourselves. And finally, to fellow African men, the time has come when we have to know that we are brothers, irrespective of the shades of our colors. We must really put the agenda of our founding fathers into reality. The Kwame Nkrumah's warned us, the Milton Obote's warned us, the Haile Selassie's warned us. What killed them should not kill us too. Let's be learned, let's speak a lesson, and then we make Africa a great continent. Thank you.
Manful, the assumption here is that you are FDC's youth leader and you've been delegated by the country to speak at the UN General Assembly, let's say in the 79th sitting. In 2 minutes, what would you tell us?
Yes. The context in which I had wanted to answer your question, now we have, as you asked before, the coming time when I'm to represent Uganda at the UN Assembly. Personally, I will not say I'm going to make a speech, But in my speech, by then, because the dynamics will have changed, but still, I will be looking at the issues that are affecting us as Africa. Two, I'll be looking at the solutions on how to get Africa on board, and look at the Africa independence, how we can identify ourselves, how we can develop our continent. Because what I know, Africa's independence is not to come so soon. So possibly in the coming future, even when I'm to represent whether the FDC or the nation, I will still enter that.
Mercy Kanyesigye,
Thank
another
you.
woman on that powerful podium in New York.
Thank you, Comrade Kidega. I think, let me first appreciate him. He did well. I think I just saw him, the Pan-Africanism in him, and we really need such leaders.
Sure.
And me, I am a
Which
person.
is the success of the NIM.
Yeah?
The Pan-African, which is the success of the NIM.
Yeah. Of course. So I love that, and me personally, I love people who stand on their grounds. You know, if it is A, you say it, and do not be intimidated. So I really love to associate with such people, and I just really loved how he created his speech, and you know, he really did well. And
So
I think after here, you just need to be
associate yourself with these views.
Yes, I really love that.
Associate yourself.
But I think to me, well, I will not really deviate from what they said. Of course, I will talk about the African continent at large, the issues that we are facing, and the challenges that, you know, the reason why we are facing them, and what the solutions. Talk about the insecurity. What is the cause of the insecurity in Africa? Talk about it. You know, what the solution have you put as a country like Uganda, you know, to overcome such? And of course, the Vice President also tried to talk about that. And of course, with the guidance of the theme of the, you know, the 78th, you know, General Assembly, I would also talk about what we have done as far as, you know, the 2030 agenda is concerned, how Uganda we are performing, of which the Vice President did. And I love the fact that he stood about on the issue of the sovereignty, our independence, and why we do the laws that we do. I really appreciated that, and I recommend. Like, it was so interesting for me. Yeah.
All right, Harris, finally, I'll end you. But just before you come, is that, of course, we know the NUP has staggered to articulate to us its foreign policy. So maybe this is a chance for you to, you know, speak to perhaps the bigger foreign policy vision of the NUP on that powerful stage.
Well, I am not the official speaker for the NUP, but for sure, what I need to say is that I am in full confidence about the competence of the young men and women at the NUP, in as far as, you know, foreign policy is concerned or domestic policy is concerned. And some of the opinions I'm going to share regarding what I believe should have been said on that podium are informed, you know, by my conversations with some of those intelligent young men and women down there. So my speech would constitute, among others, you know, message communicated by the President of Kenya, His Excellency William Ruto, the President of South Africa, the representative of Burkina Faso, and what my brother O has said. And in summary, it would include the following points. Point number one is about reformation of the UN Security Council. If the UN is founded on the principle of sovereignty, of equal state, one vote, then that should be reflected to portray Africa as equal player at the global level, because that is what it is. The UN is built on the state basis, and this discrimination based on the economic wealth, on cultural perceived superiority of cultures needs to be eliminated. That kind of bigotry needs to be defeated and thrown out through the window of the UN Security Council. That's point number one, reformation of the UN Security Council. Point number two, and which is a bit adjustment of what my brother said, Africa is no longer going to demand. We are coming to the table not as beggars, but as equal contributors to the global affairs. Not as victims, but as men of equal competencies. Of equal competencies, just like anyone around the globe. Africa has talented men and women capable of going anywhere that any other human being has gone. Even if it is going to the moon, even if it is technological, scientific, cultural, entertainment, advancement, the African mind is capable of that.
Sure.
Forget the history of subjugation, the history of suppression and the violence of one race against the other. We want to put that behind us. And the picture we want to portray to the rest of the world is that we are equal players. And when we come to that table, that conversation of more than 190 nations, we have come not to beg. We have come not as weak men and women, but rather as equal men, as equal participants in the global affairs of humankind. And that's why we're somehow saying, all right, the performance by our representative as Uganda was not up to that footing. And that's why I gave kudos to President William Ruto, because I think that of late he's been the face of African leadership. And he has been emphatic on this statement of, look, as a continent we want to contribute. And that's why I appreciate the representatives of Africa Union, the 7 countries that went to engage in the Russia-Ukrainian war. It may not have been successful, but the gesture alone that Africa can also be a contributor to world peace was very important. Remember, why is it so? Because Africa has been seen as a war-torn area, as people who have nothing to contribute, but to be recipients of aid, of tokenism, of mercy, of charity. So this age, this generation is going to be the generation of saying, no, we are competent enough, we are full enough, we are created in the image of God, just like any other creature on the face of the earth. So that was a good gesture. Point number 3, we also would like to call upon the UN to abandon immediately this practice of discriminatory, politically motivated imposition of sanctions. Sanctions on Palestine, sanctions on Zimbabwe, sanctions on Cuba, which have been long-standing for reasons which have been informed by not universal values, but Western values.
Yes.
So sanctions on Cuba must be raised, must be uplifted, and let everyone participate, not based on someone's perception of what is the right thing to do or not, but what is globally, what is universally agreed upon by the UN General Assembly. Lastly, we call upon, I would call upon the leaders at the UN to reform the financial and the economic system. One of the reasons Africa is still highly indebted is because we have a capitalistic, exploitative international economic system. And that fellow young Africans and young Africans is not going to be granted on a silver platter.
That's
because those who encourage this system benefit by it, and they are not going to relinquish. So it is up to African states to come together and push for a system, an economic system, a national and international financial financing model that is just, that is fair to the needs of Africa. Finally, about climate financing. Africa is one of the least emitters, yet the consequences of climate change are there on the African continent.
Yes.
We saw what happened in Libya. We saw what happened in Morocco. Those are some of the consequences of climate change, which are caused far away from the continent. We saw that when there was a global pandemic, the most vulnerable communities were African communities. So this is again not begging, but it's a demand, and it is based in principles of fairness. principles of natural justice, that the leading emitters pay their fair share of the burden of the emission they have caused as per the Paris agreements on climate change. You know, the problem is, with UN, I think what has become a vice at the UN General Assembly is world leaders coming and making colorful speeches that are pompous, that are good to the ears, but they don't follow up those speeches with actions.
Sure.
So that rhetoric, from now going forth, we want it to be followed by action. Let promises be fulfilled. Let commitments be made. Let declarations be implemented for God and my country in the name of humanity.
All right. Well, you've triggered me to think about certain things, but I would love us to end this conversation right here and shift gears.
Sure.
To the blue corner, which is the Forum for Democratic Change, that is only 2 years shy from its 20th birthday, now finds itself in total chaos and turmoil. Well, we don't know what is inspiring, this conflict between Naja Nkumbi and Katonga, but well, we're here to evaluate and understand. And of course, Manful, obviously, yes. I want to begin with you.
Yes, yes.
I know that you aspire to be the Forum for Democratic Change youth leader.
Yes.
Under which election do you intend to contest? The one organized by Naja Nkumbi, or the one that was announced this week by the acting president, the Honorable Elias Lukwago?
Thank you so much for that question. And I would like to tell the viewers that we have only one FDC. And as you have asked me on where I lie as the elections are concerned, then I lie in the circles of the election organized by the Party Electoral Commission, chaired by the Honorable Totoreba Kawamwenda. And this is an election that was set to continue by the National Council that sat on 28th of July, 2023. Because under the recommendations, they adopted the EC process, and they said the districts that had voted by then, their election process was to stand. And the districts that had not yet voted, the Electoral Commission was to prepare for those districts to vote again. And part of that council meeting, they also adopted the elders report, which consisted of the issue of dirty money. It was adopted and with no amendments. And the third one, it was there was a recommendation of having the elders report put to public, and that was done. The elders report was put to the public, and that National Council recommendations were signed by Ambassador Waswabirigwa, the chairperson, the person in charge of convening the National Council and possibly the delegates conference, and signed by Honorable Nandara Nathan Mafabi, who is the secretary to the council. So it means whatever is taking place in the FDC was adopted, was...
okay, are you going to be part of the 6th October delegates conference?
Yes, I will.
Who has called for that conference?
Possibly, the Electoral Commission is in charge of preparing the election from the start up to the end.
But who convenes that conference by law? Because I see you have the constitution.
Yes.
So who convenes that sitting by law?
By constitution, it should be the chairperson
yes.
of the party. Is the one who calls for the delegates conference.
Has he called it?
Not yet. However, we need to understand that there is the elected district leaders, the elected district chairpersons, petition to the party president, and where they brought in the vote of no confidence to the chairman. And the party president wrote to the chairman, who was given 48 hours to reply to the allegations or to the petition. against him, and he has never replied, of which after 48 hours, he was to be recommended to the disciplinary committee. So it means, as it stands now, the party chairman is pending disciplinary committee.
As it stands, you are going to participate in an illegality on 6th. As it stands, because you're going to subject yourself to a process that was not convened or called for by the legitimate office bearer.
No, now.
Because as you're saying it, the Ambassador Birigwa is still the substantive chairman, pending disciplinary action. So until that happens, he is still the chairperson. And he hasn't convened.
Yes, well, under the same constitution, we need to know that the president, the party president, who is the chief executive officer, has the powers, as per the constitution, to appoint an acting person in case there is a virtue. To appoint an acting to appoint an acting person in case one fails to adhere to the disciplinary, the call for disciplinary action. So it means before it ends, we shall have the party chairman to call that delegates conference. It will be the mandate of the electoral commission. If you don't have the party chairman now, the constitution, we shall pray for the constitution to be amended, because the electoral commission has to start an election and end it.
Okay, lastly, before I shift to this gentleman, is that, and lady, of course, is that, you are subjecting yourself to a process sanctioned by the Honorable Amuriat and the Honorable Nandala. But as far as we know, these two have been suspended. They are not in office. So do they have powers to act and to go ahead with?
No, well,
they were suspended by the extraordinary delegates conference.
Well, we need first of all to understand that the fact that as the constitution says, that the chairperson of the party calls and convenes the delegates conference, but the chairperson himself cannot be the party and cannot work solely as a person. He has to work with his fellow colleagues. So it means the extraordinary meeting was illegal, first of all, because even there was a court order that was stopping all party activities, including that very extraordinary conference.
Okay, fair enough. Just hold it right there. Harris,
yeah.
What from where you're seated, how do you evaluate what is happening in the FDC?
First, you asked that which election is he going to participate in, and he said one at Katonga, or the one under the, stewardship of Lord Mayor, His Worship A.S. Lukwago, or the one that is organized by the leadership of Honorable Amuriat. I expected you to have added with assistance, because there is a claim from public that election is being organized by Honorable Amuriat and Honorable Nandala Mafabi with some assistance in one way or the other of the NRM. I don't know how that is true. And on this
what
show,
do you mean the NRM?
and on this show, I know that my sister Mercy is listening in with a lot of sympathy for my brother, because he must solicit for legal counsel to rationalize whatever my brother Manful is going to say. So that dynamic must also be understood as playing in the background. But to respond to your question, of course, what is happening in the FDC is good and bad for the democracy. It's good in an instance that, to the extent that there is no violence, contestation of ideas, trying their constitution, this is the right time to place the constitutional limits of the power dynamics within that party. So that is a very good, it's a very useful thing for the growth of the party. And if it sticks together, I can assure you that that party is going to emerge from that crisis stronger. And that is what we envisage as a nation. That's what the 1995 Constitution is supposed to provide to us as a nation. That conflicts are going to emerge. Human beings are inherently conflicting beings. Interests are going to clash. Individual interests are going to clash with the collective interests. The question is, how do you harmonize them? Now, the scheme of any constitution, be it national constitution, be it a party constitution, be it a company constitution, be an NGO constitution, is to provide a mechanism of handling that conflict in a civil manner. And to a great extent, I think that is what is happening to the FDC, especially to the extent that they are resorting to court, they are resorting or limiting themselves to the provisions of the Constitution. However, of course, in the same vein, I condemn the violence. There is one party, especially from what we are seeing from the news, that has resorted to violent means. That is a cake. It is an affront on our civilization efforts, and it should be condemned in the strongest terms possible. Now, I was once a member of the FDC, and it pains me. Unfortunately for my brother, he seems to have chosen a party where public opinion has already went against them.
You mean a side?
A side, yes, a side where the public opinion is already against them. For example, as the leadership, they had an opportunity to organize a national, to organize NEC. There have been efforts to call NEC, and NEC takes a decision on the future direction of the party. In when there was COVID, when COVID hit the country, you were supposed to organize elections for change of power, because the new leadership, the leadership which is there, was elected in 2015, and the term of office should have ended around 2020, but was extended. Why? Because the constitution of the FDC allows the NEC to take such a decision. So where you have such an impeding crisis, NEC is the organ that you run to for remedy. But, and this is where the motive, the fairness and the justness of the leadership of the President Amriat comes into question. Why has he become adamant to call the NEC to resolve this impeding, it's not an impeding, it's actually a crisis. It's a crisis, because by the time you have two bodies, two factions within the party, each visibly strong, calling for a delegates meeting. Clearly, it's a crisis.
That's true.
But how the FDC emerges out of it, of course, is going to be important. And as the member of the National Unity Platform, of course, it's my sincere prayer. It is our sincere prayer as the NUP that FDC emerges out of it strongly. Why? Because in a democratic environment, you want strong political parties. Why? Because political parties are vehicles of mobilization, of national consciousness. They are vehicles of economic empowerment. They are vehicles of education. They are vehicles of sensitization. They are vehicles of cultural entrenchment. They are important organizations in the social fabric of any nation. So any nation builder, any public commentator, any citizen who wishes that FDC goes to the dog, then doesn't know what they are wishing for, because we need strong political parties that are democratic in nature, and I think FDC has merited that kind of position in our political spaces. It has made an enormous contribution in our democratization effort as a nation, and we all need to pray for it. We need to give them all the support they need in order to stay afloat.
Sure. Mercy, from where you're seated, the Revolutionary National Resistance Movement, as you're sitting and watching what is playing out in the FDC, what do you make of it? But also, is it, does it then, cast the FDC in bad light, and therefore, somehow give the NRM an advantage in one way or another?
Okay, thank you, comrade, about that question. It is really interesting, but when I look what is happening in FDC, me as a young person, it is really so heartbreaking. Building on what he said, that political parties, true, they are like their roles, their importance, why we need them as a country. You know, she said vehicle for economics, education, health, advocating for even the rights of all Ugandans. I think it's very important. And when I see what is happening, really, it's really absurd to find that such a political party that he cannot sit down and resolve their issues, and they should be in position to do that. And when I look at it, okay, I also had to ask myself, where does this really come from? And the issue, it's about the dirty money and also the issue of elections, who is supposed to vote when, who is supposed to call. So there are also, conflicts. But on the issue of dirty money, and I don't know, I hear that say that NRM, I think people, they don't know what is really happening. And you cannot blame NRM for this. It's about, organization of the political party. I mean, it's up to them, and I see it is just hearsay because they don't know what is really happening. For example, where do they get funding? The political party, I think, under political parties and organizations, it's around over section 14 something, I'm not so sure, but it states that a political party should disclose where they get their source of funding, their expenditure, all the accountability. And but we see FDC as a leader. Me, I don't want to go in there, their indifferences. I don't want to know. I look at FDC as a party, and whoever is really, it's their business. But me, I look at the FDC. They're talking about democracy. What are they showing the country? Are they do what they're supposed to do according to the constitution and the political parties organization? Where do they get money? They're not disclosing. And you cannot stand there and say NRM, that's a responsibility of FDC. If they are getting money from wherever they are going, they should come and tell Ugandans, this is where we are getting money and this is what we are using for. So I see disorganization in their political party, and I mean,
should they benchmark with how NRM handles internal
conflicts? Of course, they should, because we have a leader, the leader of, the NRM party. He's really a leader, and he knows what it means to have such disorganization. That's why it doesn't really happen, broadly. And when it happens, he finds ways on how to curb it or how to resolve the issues. And I think any person, that's a leader who should, a person, a leader, you should be in position to resolve issues. It's like family.
How does he resolve them? By beating the opponents?
No, beating that. We are talking about political parties. Actually, even that's hearsay. Where did you see President Museveni beating? Do you have the evidence?
Amicably.
No, do you have the evidence that President Museveni was beating FDC? Why do you operate on hearsay?
No,
me, I want someone.
The president
is
the commander-in-chief. During the 2021 elections, we had over 60 people shot on the streets of Kampala. We had military deployment all over the country. Was that an amicable settlement of a conflict? Should an election be a conflict anyway?
No, it shouldn't. But that is not President himself. There are organs of state that
but also for the NRM, we can say that your leader uses coercion. Why? Because we have never seen anyone challenge his office. Whoever has been challenged, like Amama Mbabazi, has always been ejected and humiliated and subjected to torture and all sorts of bad things that you wouldn't wish to happen to any one person. Now, until Museveni has allowed a competition, like it has happened in FDC, we cannot fully really say that this man is good at managing conflict.
Yeah, he's good because he has managed to rule us.
Because
by coercion. No, that's not true. That's not true.
We are discussing internal conflict, right?
Yeah.
And we are saying that the NRM has internally managed to handle it internally.
But how?
You gave an example of the Right Honorable JPAM, who, I mean, you've described it in so many ways, but as we speak currently, JPAM is back to the NRM. And so that demonstrates to you that even when in 2016 they disagreed at some point, President Museveni has capacity to say, okay, we disagreed, but there is a bigger future, and come back and we work together.
Yeah,
I think that is what she is trying to say.
Fair enough.
That internally, they're able to do that.
Fair enough. But the point is, ever since Mr. Museveni took the reins of chairpersonship in the NRM, has he ever been challenged? Or he has always been the sole man at the stewardship? And can we say that therefore he is a democratic man?
The question,
are you saying during that time
is what the members of the NRM want? If the members of the NRM say, no, first we are comfortable with you being our chairperson, then what's your issue with that?
And actually,
because the question is President Museveni imposing himself on the NRM?
No, he's not.
The people,
the
members are saying, no, we still want you, and please continue staying there.
Yeah, but and this is a panel, this is a chat show, which is majorly watched by the young people.
Yes.
Most of our viewers on this chat show, Mr. Kidega,
yes, are young people.
Are young people.
That's true.
Who are forming new values, among them democratic and political values.
Yes.
We should tell them that we need to encourage positive competition. And while analyzing how Museveni has maintained grips on the leadership of the NRM party, we need to tell them and be honest with them how he has managed to do that. One is undercover intimidation. Number two is blatant corruption. Are we together? In other words, before they go to Chankwan's, where they also have their resolutions, every time they want to change the leadership, Museveni knows that he needs 1 trillion, and every delegate leaves that.
Allegedly. Those are yours.
Yes, everyone lives there. Everyone lives Chankwan's with 2 billion.
That is your
Every day.
Oh God.
No, that's not
Every delegate at Chankwan's lives with 2 billion. Ask Honorable Semuju.
Is that really possible?
That is your hearsay.
But I think, that's hearsay. That's your freedom of expression. Say whatever you want to say. But to all you young people, President Museveni has not really participated that how you are saying. You also want to be like Honorable Chagran, what he was doing in Ruel.
What did he do?
That's hate speech. Really, as a leader, how do we expect such hate speech from such a leader? I mean, what are you showing to the young people? But now
you're digressing, Mercy. We are from, is coming in, but let's Comrade Kidega organize a show on hate speech, and I condemn hate speech in the strongest terms. But here we are on resolution, peaceful and civil resolution of conflict.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, Mercy, were you done?
Now he wants to appoint himself to be
very undemocratically walk out. Undemocratic. Yes. Abuse of procedure. Mercy, please. You are still saying something. I'll just give you 2 minutes, then I'll move to OO.
Yeah, of course, what I said, actually, to add on what he said, he talks about how, NRM is go up. Now, in this case, is FDC, part of NRM, but see what they are doing. And you cannot convince me because I've never seen NRM, and all young person or any person out there has not seen NRM doing all these things they are doing. If you have really failed to manage, a small, group of people, how are you going to manage 45 million of people, to think for them? Really, if you really want us, to talk about democracy, you walk the talk. Show us what you can do. Yes, I appreciate issues will always arise, just like families. We have issues, you have issues with your parents, your siblings, but when you sit down, you resolve and things move on. What is hard for FDC to do that? So, to me, I don't think FDC is really
a competent political.
Yeah, a competent political.
Yeah, I mean, they have chosen to wash their linen in the public. I mean,
wow,
the Forum for Democratic Change.
Thank you.
I can see you have a blue tie.
I'm telling you, I had to do this in honor and respect of the party.
Is NUP. All young people belong to NUP.
Well, personally, I'm a sympathizer to anyone who fights for freedom. a sympathizer for anyone who would love to be in an environment where he can freely express himself. It's very absurd finding FDC in such a basket where they are tied and they don't know the way out. But however, being in a generation of the youths who are very much thirsty for a progressive state, I feel I'm happy to be experiencing and seeing what is going on at this time. I love the question he asked, the question of how they come out of it. I watched a documentary about the neighboring country, and that documentary is called Daniel Arap Moi, the Professor of Politics. In that documentary, it showed how Daniel Arap Moi was able to play the games and rule Kenya for quite a long period of time. Even when people demanded for multi-party systems, he said, okay, it's right, let's put it there. But then he still came and beat them up in an election in a multi-party system. But what happens is here, the same systems that today we are seeing in FDC were quite very familiar with the system of what would be happening in the Kenyan opposition at that time. We had by then the biggest opposition called Ford. So Ford was led by Jaramogi, the father to the current leader of the opposition. But then later on, nearer to the elections, Ford would split into two. Into Ford Kenya and Ford Asili. And then each of them would accuse one another of dealing with the Mzee Daniel Arap Moi. And then they would waste a lot of time fighting one another. Meanwhile, the Mzee is advancing. Then later on, even the community, the public, loses trust on them. Because they would be like, you can't even organize yourselves. Surely, let's trust the Mzee again. So today, I would really love to see the evidence of the dirty money. Personally, I would love to see it. That, you know, I've thirsted for it. I've waited to see where is the tangible evidence. How did it come? If there's a documented, let them hire people like this gentleman of the
investigative
the investigative journalists. Let them follow these things. How did it move? We would love to see that in a broad daylight, that this is it. But then, leaving that aside, today FDC is facing a challenge that can be solved. But why it is so difficult is that we have geared ourselves into a position of who is wrong and who is right, rather than what is wrong and what is right. Are you getting that? And such a position takes us to an African mentality that would love to see of Uganda, the big man syndrome. Everyone is now boasting arrogantly of their contribution to the party. And when everyone feels like their wing can't go down, trust me, to bring harmony in such an environment becomes very difficult. I would advise my brother here. I'm not sure if you are a great follower of the Abrahamic religion, the Christianity, Islam. It emphasizes that let the greatest humble himself. Let the greatest first humble himself. Today, FDC, as we speak, everyone wants to prove to be great using the power of the tongue. I would also pass a message to the leaders of FDC. Let's be very careful today. We have to know that the position of Amriat, Dr. Kizza Besigye, Nandala Mafabi, Ssemujju Nganda, Erias Lukwago are all national. Ugandans see these people with a level of competence, credibility, and certain level of intellectualism. So using an ordinary tongue in one or the other might lower your credibility. The crowd cheering you, and then you are forced immediately to think in a small way that will force you to simply abuse your friends, abuse the personalities and the characters of your friend publicly, might again push the party to a position where recovery might be so difficult, even when we have reached it. The point of you undermined me, you abused me. Today as we speak, I believe it's an African nature. No African man would love to be told that you are actually useless, you are nothing, and I'm seeing is going on. Had they only zeroed their arguments on constitutionalism, zeroed their arguments using what their own constitution says, what their book says, I think by now the debate would have been quite fair and better. My final message to the young population in Uganda: let's be very critical at such a time. It's a turbulent time where we are going to witness something that we have not seen in our history. Uganda has not undergone this, where a political party formed under the watchful eyes of President Museveni is in between the cracks of breaking and separating into two, and then a small thread is holding it over there. We give them a lot of hope. But above all, I would love to say that we don't have any other country to run to. This is our only Uganda. So if we are to argue, if we are to fight, let's fight using the brain. Let's sharpen our mind, sharpen our thinking, not our egos, not our emotions too. Because at the end of it, when we tear each other apart and put this country into a state of hopelessness at all, and then take ourselves into a turmoil, we might, at the end of the day, one day regret our own history. FDC must also stay slightly away from regionalism. Let them focus into the debate of the party. The debate today is starting to shrink. People are going regionalism. And that is not nice for a country that has passed through lots of fights and frictions on regional issues. Time must come where we look at ourselves as individuals and have our arguments as individuals within the political spectrum. Not what is happening in Bugisu, not I have the people of Soroti, not I have the people of Western Uganda. That will tear Ugandans apart. We have hopes in you. We appreciate FDC. They have been there. They are the young babies that came out during the reign and the watchful eyes of President Museveni. We are sorry that in one or the other, they kind of lost the lines of having their mind into the intellectual thing. But let them focus into where FDC started, where is its agenda, and where are they today. And let the big one humble himself so that they forge a better path for this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Our time is fast spent. We have maximum of 10 minutes here. Manful,
Yes.
as we approach 2026, do you think your party shall be ready to compete against, for example, the NRM? Or are you going to give way for, does this conflict in fact give more way for NUP to eat into your political party?
Yes, thank you so much. As a person from the start who from the start advocated for reconciliation between the two the two parties or the two groups, I feel there is still a chance for that to happen. And I believe, and I'm confident enough that the FDC is to stay and to stay strong. And therefore it will be ready for the 2026 competition at the national level. Then I'd wanted the viewers to recall some of the words that General Munt said on the podium while at Nambo during the delegates conference when he had contested with the Honorable Amuriat. Under his term of leadership, after being the president in 2012, where I had contested with the Right Honorable Nanda Ramafab, he had internal conflicts. There were internal conflicts in the party because even after that election of 2012, there was a petition. After 2 weeks, a petition came in saying that the election was not free and fair. They handled that. Then there came in an issue of how long should be the term of the president. So on the podium, while talking to the delegates, he said to Amuriat, to Honorable Amuriat, he said, you are talking about solving the internal conflicts. But look, the conflicts that we have been having as the party, the internal conflicts, those that are involved in those conflicts are the ones supporting you. And he asked him, how are you going to solve those conflicts? Now, we are at a time where the people who supported the Honorable Amuria to become the party president are now against him. These are the people, actually, all of them, Honorable Nanda Ramafab, Honorable Jack Sabit, Honorable Amuriat, Dr. Kidega Moses, are all part of the founding members. Now, how comes that the person who you have worked with for the last 15 years by then, by 2015, how comes that now you supported him, you worked together for the past 15 years, you supported him to become the party president. Now after 5 years or 6 or 7, now you say, this person is bad. Did he become bad during this this short period during his term of office? Then we need to look at, of course, politics. You can't rule out the issue of interests. We can't rule out the issue of interest because what is happening is in the FDC, I've always told people that it is even beyond the dirty money. As we see, it is beyond the dirty money. So, personally, I feel and I pray that reconciliation happens. I pray that our comrades from Katonga side realize the importance of the FDC keeping together.
Katonga side, why not the Najanangumbi side? Why are you only speaking to the
Yes,
side?
I'm speaking to Katonga side because as I can recall,
Najanangumbi has been accused of hiring goons and dealing with goons and I mean, we saw what happened at your party offices some time back, where there was massive deployment of people that we could not really identify.
Yes, I wanted to first finish my point, then
please finish, then you can respond later.
So the reason why I said Katonga side should look into harmonizing and having the FDC keep together. I saw a letter that was addressed to the party chairman by the party president, Honorable Muriat, where in the letter indicated that all efforts were being made to reach out to the chairman for harmonization and possibly to forge a way forward for reconciliation. But he was not picking calls. What does that mean? Then on the issue of what happened at the headquarters, I want to put your attention that there is an audio that's saturated of one of the people affiliated to Katonga side who was given money possibly to hire some goons. So it becomes, I don't know if I can call it a win-win situation. Because now if you hire goons, because that audio actually came in before that day, if you hire goons to come and disrupt, because possibly I think it was about disrupting the National Council meeting, which was also in terms of a coup. So we need to sit down as the FDC. We harmonize together. Where there is need, we reconcile for the good of the party. Unless that, we shall be back to the past, where in the past election, where we had the General Muntu and his people, supporters, leave the party. And that is what will happen if we don't sit down, harmonize, and reconcile. This is what will happen, and I testify that automatically the FDC will lose, but to still stay stronger.
Okay, fair enough. Mercy, the Katonga faction has dragged Uganda police to court on accusations of them perhaps being partisan. Do you think, okay, first of all, what do you make of the interim injunction that court pronounced itself on? That is one. Two, in your evaluation, do you think the accusations coming from Katonga that Uganda police has taken sides, but also they went ahead to accuse the judiciary or the courts of law of playing politics?
Thank you, comrade. Well, what I never wanted to talk about or to discuss about their differences between the parties. I was looking at FDC as a political party, and it's their responsibility to put the party together because they formed that political party, or they joined when they had the same ideas and beliefs. I hoped for them to resolve these issues. But then to talk on that issue of Katonga faction dragging the Uganda police in court, I think they did a right thing, because if you really aggrieved, where do you run to? You go to court, and now I cannot say anything because the matter it is before the court. I cannot.
Sub judice.
Yeah, it's sub judice, so I cannot mention anything. Let the court address the issue, and from there maybe we shall discuss it.
Maybe Comrade Kidega, by and large, the court matter by the Katonga FDC faction notwithstanding, do you believe that the police in Uganda is partisan? That inside they are predominantly yellow, even when they put on our uniform, our national uniform?
Well, of course, maybe, but I don't believe in that, because first way to conclude, because what I know, the role of police, first way, the role of police is to protect the lady. To protect the Ugandans and their property.
That is my very good friend.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So maybe in their way of performing Uganda police performing their duties, you misinterpret it, because I know you cannot tell me that the police is not supposed, to be
implement the government projects.
Not really, to protect people and their property, to prevent crime, detect crime. So maybe if when they are implementing their duties, you misinterpret it. Wow. That's what you want to say. Or they are not supposed, if it is about political parties and the Katonga faction. If it's about FDC, police should not say anything. So do you want to tell me they are not Ugandans? FDC people are not Ugandans, and they are not supposed to be, protected?
Now, if you promise that you won't accuse me for usurping the powers of the moderator, I can answer. Yes. Now, in many instances, we all know that the police has acted rather not impartially, as we would expect them. The standard conduct expected of the police under the Constitution, under the Uganda legal framework, and the international standard of policing is that of non-partisan and professionalism. In fact, even the name police force is wrong. And other jurisdictions like South Africa and these other Western countries have changed it from a force to a police service. When you go to South Africa, it is South African police service, not a force. And you can see that there is everything wrong that needs to be modified about our policing. I will give you an example of the letter that was written by the police, okay, stopping the national tours of the National Unity Platform. Let's assume they had the point. But wasn't the letter colored with partisan language?
What do you
How?
mean? Partisan language?
Because anyway, how?
No,
Anyway,
let's,
how?
please
Yeah.
tell us.
Because you could see clear undertones of personal vendetta of the author of the letter against the national tours. The language such as we shall. I mean, I don't remember the exact quotes, but the language was so couched in a strong, militaristic, violent manner that you wouldn't expect of a force whose natural inclination. Whose natural inclination is that of protecting the people.
The viewers all ask credible information.
Yeah.
You are citing a letter that you yourself cannot recall even a single word of. So, can we rely on your analysis and evaluation to be that is honest, but also that is accurate? Because,
comrade,
your brain is not supporting you here.
Criticizing everything.
Comrade,
referencing to at least one or two words that were mentioned in the letter.
Sure, you expect me
that you can at least use as reference to say, okay, words like this.
You expect me to
depict,
to memorize bad letters, violent language. You don't care about my mental health. You want to.
I would love to just say something.
But
I don't know how many minutes we have.
On that issue, I think the letter of the police, it was about they stated the where they get their mandate to protect people and their property, and the issue was rated about the Honorable Kyagulanyi's speech in Ruwer. I've already told you it was a hate speech. Yeah, sectarianism, division, tribalism, all those stuff.
It is unacceptable.
Exactly, and that's the role of the police. So you expected the
no
police.
one should tolerate an individual who is preaching divisive politics.
And that is a leader, and you expect the police to keep quiet.
Police was right to swing into action and say,
do you think if something had happened to people everywhere, they are going to forgive the country?
I know
you think they are going to blame Bob Wine, or they are going to blame the government?
I know you're out of time. The issue of hate speech is one of paramount importance to our civic space, to our security as a people, to our unity as a nation. So I think would be prejudicial to those who have been accused, those who believe that actually the president, Bobi Wine, did not actually preach sectarianism. If we comment about it in passing, I think that unless you guarantee us that we have 5 or 10 minutes to discuss it, then let's not comment about it. Because we have demonstrated from time and time again that actually he was quoted out of context. If you read his speech into context, then you cannot call that hate speech. He was calling out people who belong to a specific family who have captured the state of Uganda. He did not, and when you look at a man Kyagulanyi, even inside his family, the wife, how can a man like Kyagulanyi really speak against Abanyankole when the wife is a Munyankole? How can he speak about Abanyankole?
But we can
let's go about it, because you have opened it up, my comrade sir.
It is you who opened it up.
The general secretary of Mr. Kyagulanyi is David Lewis Rubongoya. The national treasurer is Katana Benjamin. All of them. Me here, the man from Kabamushwerenche in Rukunjiri, who was elected the speaker of Kawempe Division. Kawempe, 95% of the councillors who voted for me to be the speaker of the Republic of Kawempe, the People's Republic of Kawempe. That is the most important republic in this country. 95% of them were not from my ethnicity. So if hate, if ethnicity, if regionalism as the NIM would like to portray it, was the value of NUP, I wouldn't be the speaker. Look at our national character as a party. I am very sure Ugandans would disagree. And as young people, we need to be careful.
We are basing on what he said.
We need to be careful because we need to be alive to the tricks used by dictators. One of those tricks is using, in the context of Uganda, ethnicity to divide those who are organizing and undermine the leaders like Chagorani.
I hold you in high regard. I don't expect you to, so a man of your caliber, I don't expect you to be defending certain actions of your leader.
What was said in the
I expect you to rise above the occasion on certain instances and not allow yourself to be dragged into defending what clearly is wrong.
Can we go back to
and
FDC?
If I'm to borrow the words
can
of
we
justice,
please go, can we go back? Can we go back to the FDC?
Yes,
but the moderator, you are changing the character of the show. Moderator, you are changing the character of the show. Okay. Clearly, we came to talk about the FDC.
Yeah. Exactly. Our time is fast spent.
Exactly.
we have to go out of this place. Manful, I'll give you just a minute, and we shall have to wrap this up in the next 2 minutes maximum.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the issue of the Katonga group taking police to court. One, we need to recall that sometimes we see the last bit of the actions, but we don't dig deeper on how things started. Because before the Extraordinary Delegates Conference, one chairman, Ambassador Waswabirigwa, and the Honorable Kawaziguru Kamaiko went to police to seek for security. And these are the people I asked that, you are the very people we fought with against the Public Order Management Bill, and now you are running to police for what? After that, the Secretary General wrote back to the police. The police at first had accepted to give them security. Then the Secretary General of the FDC wrote to the police saying that the extraordinary meeting, the party was not aware of that extraordinary meeting. And the police wrote back to them saying that they were not going to provide security for them and advised that the two groups should sit on table and harmonize. So now the Katonga group taking police to court, the police that had said they were not going to provide security for them. That was indicated in the letter. And they were saying the extraordinary meeting should not happen because it might come up with chaos and violence. That is what the police advised in its letter. So now taking it to court, then it becomes diversionary. Because they gave you a letter and you read it, indicating that we are not going to provide security and advising that the two groups should sit down on table and harmonize.
All right, let's get parting shots. I'll begin with you, in just strictly 45 seconds. Your parting shots.
Oh, thank you.
We close up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Dear listeners and the viewers, and the fellow countrymen, and the young generation out there. This country is ours. It's our responsibility to build it. The issues going on in FDC should be something that each and every Ugandan should have interest in, so that in one or the other, we help this political party not end up sinking under the oceans. I would love to say that it's not easy to survive, especially a country where the head of state has been a product or a great believer of one-party state. Democracies to survive is not quite easy there. The Ugandan police has been quite not being neutral in many cases, but we feel they too should be moving towards a progressive way of doing things, where they don't have to take sides in every now and then, but rather look into an environment of following the Constitution. I look towards having a Uganda where this generation respect, value the Constitution, and that Uganda will be a better one. Thank you.
Thank you, Manful.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if we'll be allowed to seek for votes from the.
Please go ahead.
Yes, conclusively, I want to say this, that when a family has a conflict, it becomes of no use getting out of the family and you go maybe to the neighbors to solve conflicts from there. I had always told my colleagues from Katonga that the best thing would have been them involving themselves in an election if there is something bad, and then they handle it through an election. I would like to call upon my fellow youth and the delegates of the FDC National Youth Conference that is to take place on 19th of October. Some I have already talked to them. Some I have not yet talked to them, but I will come to them. I humbly request for their support to my candidate as the chairperson aspirant for the FDC National Youth League 2023-2028. Under the youth agenda, of which that youth agenda lies on unity, lies on mass mobilization of the youth into the party, lies on having all the structures, party youth structures from the grassroots, operational. And possibly, as I promised, I said I will break down the youth agenda. I will break down it in a detailed form this week. I thank you for hosting me here. It is my very first time, and I'm so thankful. And to my colleagues of the FDC, yes, we shall manage and contain the situation. FDC is here to stay. Let us keep stronger. Let us work together. Let us work towards having a stronger FDC like never before. I pray for reconciliation where there is need. I pray that we get together. For God and my country, one Uganda, one people.
Yes, Master Kanyesigye, the last words.
I think how we really end up with a quote that a leader is someone who knows the way and who walks the way and who show others the way, you know. So to all Ugandans out there, most so young people, because they are the most people who are really manipulated, faced with a lot of challenges than anyone in this country. I think there's something we need to do about this, or we need to think, you know, before we do anything as young people, we just need to be, you know, really calculative in whatever we do. Before you engage in violence, before you start fighting because of political parties, before any decision that you take about this country, just know what's the end goal. Or whatever you are doing, where is it taking you? Ask yourself, a leader who is telling you to do something, is that the right way? How is it going to benefit me as a person and the people around me, the community and the entire country? And where is it going? So we just need to be calculative on what leaders say, put aside political parties. Just be straight what is right according to our constitution and your personal values and other people's well-being, you know, before you do anything. Of course, I also really want to thank my fellow panelists. I think it was really a great opportunity to sit on this table with these brilliant men. It was so resourceful, you know, engaging, and of course, understanding politics. I've learned something here from my colleague, something that I really didn't know, but I'm here to learn. It was so interesting otherwise. And thank you for hosting me, for God and my country.
Thank you. Yes, Right Honourable Speaker.
Yeah, my last message is going to be twofold. One on foreign policy and lastly on political party internal democracy. On foreign policy, I would like to invite fellow young people, fellow Ugandans and young Africans at large to be interested in global affairs because we are no longer isolated hermit villages, but now we are one global community, and that puts us into a global competition, and that requires us to espouse certain skills and competencies. But most importantly, to have belief in ourselves. Gone are the days when we looked at a white man as a savior, as a demigod. He's a human being just like us. We all need to know we are created equal under God, irrespective of our colors, irrespective of our genders, irrespective of our religions, irrespective of all these other distinguishing factors. Those are immaterial. What unites us is stronger than what divides us. So for Africans who have been in this inferior position for long, I want to tell you, young Africans, that we have a rich continent, and now we have very good ingredients. We have good conditions for us to develop our continent and also be equal players on the global table. So that requires of us, of course, to expound our minds beyond our local environments, think regionally at the East African level, think continental at the African level, think globally. And that will be essential in as far as the transformation of Africa is concerned. Coming back to our local affairs, specifically on the internal, political party democracy, whenever there is a conflict, I always remind myself that I am not my body. The way we are seated here, we are not our bodies. We all belong to one universal essence. So our conflicts become magnified when we view ourselves in a materialistic form. But we are essentially spirits. We are one. And the more we close our eyes to that reality, the more we continue to hurt ourselves and hinder progress as humanity. So let's know that we are not the center of attention. We are only making a contribution to the further progress of humanity, and that calls upon us to solve our conflict in a civil manner. Thank you very much, Comrade Kidega. Thank you, Civic Space TV, for always extending an opportunity to share my opinion. Thank you, Center for Constitutional Governance, for God and my country.
Wow, that is it. Ndugu, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Aspiring chairman, we wish you nothing but the best. And Ndugu Manful, thank you. From the National Youth Council, our youth leader, thank you very much, Comrade Mercy. But of course, the Right Honourable Speaker, all the way from Kawempe Republic, as he calls it. To the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for making a date with us. Of course, Comrade Rashid and your technical team, thank you for ensuring that our viewers get this show right on time at 2 p.m. Well, that is it. The future of international relations and diplomacy has been put out to you, as well as the future of multi-party politics in this country. That is it. Until next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.